Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Brad Powers, college football professional bettor, will join us. We will do a little college football. Really haven't done any college football, I don't think, on this show, or at least much of it. Really started doing this show last year, right around Christmas, right around the bowl game. So I think we did a little bit on like the national championship and the college football playoffs, but just the timing of when this podcast started and went right into the NFL playoffs, into NBA season, March Madness, baseball. It's just the way the timing worked. Haven't done much college football, so it'll be good to catch up. Brad Powers is as good as anyone. I know he's already got dozens, if not hundreds, of bets on games, season win totals, futures. So excited to pick his brain. He is as good as anyone. So help us get ready, help me get ready for college football, which you look up June 28th. I think the first college football weekend is usually right before Labor Day. I think it's August 25th, 24th, something like that, where Labor Day weekend is usually the first full weekend of college football. They usually have that week zero, like that half week. So 2 months away, Hall of Fame game, like 5 weeks away. So football, especially just with the way this schedule works with the podcast, it's hard to do baseball's individual games because you want it to have some shelf life. So we're going to spend a lot of time on football previews. Obviously, still going to do plenty of baseball, and I'll touch on some baseball here in a minute. But excited to talk to Brad and get ready for some college football. Before we get to that, got to start with some NBA though. The draft, the Bridges trade. As I was finishing this podcast, maybe an hour after it on Tuesday, the Bridges trade to the Knicks happened. So I'll touch on that. But I do have to start with the draft. Mostly chalk. Reese Shea goes one. I kind of hit it. Hey, maybe take a shot at Shepard. There was a report like 5-10 minutes before the draft, and this pick did not leak until really. I think there was definitely some sort of gag order on Woj and Shams. Hey, don't leak the draft. It's a weak draft to begin with. Let's not kill the drama. Woj came on 10 minutes before the draft and said it's between Reese Shea and Shepard, but kind of leaning Reese Shea. And I kind of heard the same thing that, hey, Shepard's in the mix here, but all those good numbers on Shepard, all the good numbers on Klingon, any good number you had other than Reese Shea died as Reese Shea is the first pick. And then Sar, Shepard, pretty chalk after that. Castle at fourth. That nothing shocker. You got Holland, the surprise pick at 5. And I alluded to it when we were doing the preview of the draft. It is night and day from like when I was a kid and you would watch the draft and you knew every kid from college, every kid you'd watch for a few years. It started to change when, hey, these one and dones and Europeans, and there were some guys you didn't know. But this year, I mean, most of the picks, 80% of the picks, nobody ever heard of, including guys doing the draft, which is a whole other thing. The draft coverage is terrible. Stephen A. Smith on one of the picks, I'd never heard of this guy. The draft, they really did not give you anything. And the other thing that's different from watching this draft, 90s, early 2000s, they used to criticize the picks. Oh, I would have picked this guy. Oh, this guy's got holes in his game. They love every pick. They love every player. Everyone knew this was a weak draft. And we're sitting there, I think it was the 19th pick, Jacoby Walker, the kid from Baylor. Elite defender, elite scorer, great on both ends of the floor. Wait a second. It's the 19th pick in a weak draft. You make it seem like he's an all-star. Apparently got 30 all-stars picked in this draft. It's just way overboard. The coverage is soft. The coverage is bad. I don't know why they have some of the people they have on there. Monta McNutt asked, and here's the story of the first round. It was Dalton Connect, who a lot of people thought would be 6th, 7th. I think he was like even money to go 6th and a little longer than that to go 7th. So that was the expected range. He's sitting there at 17th. The broadcast barely mentioned it. And then when he gets picked, Monta McNutt's interviewing him. She goes, what are your teammates going to say about, like, she's doing like a word association game. What will your teammates think of you? And then she asked him something about his music, taste in music. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. And nobody criticizes the players. Nobody criticizes the picks. It's just all fluff. It's a really bad production. And on top of it, even a diehard college basketball fan just doesn't know that many of the players. It's all international guys. It was a tough broadcast. So we'll see. Nothing that moves the needle in terms of the odds, obviously. And we will see, I'm sure you're going to get a couple good players out of this draft, but obviously nothing that makes you think differently of any of these teams, as we will see what happens here just in terms of, rookie of the year odds. It's pretty much what you'd expect with the guys at the top, being the favorites. I think Sar is 4-1. I mean, it's nothing that I would bet right away just because maybe this is an award that's usually chalky. Maybe this is a year where you can get a long shot just because There's nobody that's that good. Who knows who's ready? There's just a lot of uncertainty here as these odds are up. They're very quick to take your money. And hey, they'll put the odds up right away. Yeah, Sar is already down to plus 350, Risachet plus 450, Castle 7-1, Salon 12-1, Shepard 12-1, Klingon 12-1, Connect 12-1, which is telling. Connect would be an interesting one just because he'd be on the Lakers. If he can get some playing time, he's going to be in the spotlight. He's going to be, you figure there's not going to be attention on him defensively with Davis and LeBron. Maybe he can get some open shots, but at 12-1, I don't know. Edey 14-1. Edey's another one that there were some whispers he was going to go higher than you'd expect as the draft approached. So some of the intel was right. Some of the intel, like, hey, Holland slipping, Dillingham slipping, that ended up not being true as those guys went higher. So that's the draft. As far as the trade, and didn't get a chance to talk this, it happened right after we recorded. 5 picks, I think 4 unprotected, a swap, go from the Knicks to the Nets. Nets also make a trade with the Rockets to get some of their stuff back. It would sit here all day trying to explain all these trades, but the Nets, I'll take it from the Nets perspective. I'll start with the Knicks. Knicks are still a really good team. They upgraded their talent. Now you have Brunson and Bridges and a whole lot of depth. You got wings. You keep Anunoby. They're one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the East. I still don't think they're as good as Boston, but hey, I like it for the Knicks. I don't love it. It is still 5 picks for a 28-year-old who's never made an all-star team, which seems like a lot of picks. But hey, Luka Doncic isn't available. Nikola Jokic isn't available. Probably I could trade for Embiid or something. So it's not perfect. It's not a home run. It doesn't make you, I don't think, a title contender, but it puts you in a position where you can be a legitimate conference finals team. And you're almost a conference finals team this year, but the East was really bad. I think in a better East, and who knows, maybe the East will be a little bit better this year. Maybe Milwaukee will be healthy. That's how I would phrase it. I think it puts them ahead of a healthy Milwaukee, as long as the Knicks are healthy. Now, Tibbs has a habit of running these guys into the ground, as we know, and Bridges, that's an interesting fit because he never misses any games. So can Tibbs break that streak? If there's anyone to do it, it is Tibbs. But it's a good trade for the Knicks. I don't think it's a great trade. I don't think it makes them a title contender. But hey, when you've been as bad as the Knicks are for a long time, until the last 3 or 4 years, the fact that you can be a second, third round team, it's almost like the Knicks teams of the 90s. I think that's what they pencil themselves in here as, almost the 90s team where second round, third round, if things break right, you make a finals. I don't think they're a title team, but they're close. Not bad. I mean, it's not perfect, but you're not one of the favorites. But hey, after how bad it's been, I get it for the Knicks. I like it. I don't love it. I thought the Nets hit a home run because the Nets needed to rebuild. Cooper Flag is going to be the first pick next year. You put yourself in the mix where, hey, we're going to be the worst team. We get our picks back, and we can do a full tank. We can do a full breakdown. We can rip the Band-Aid off from the Durant era, the Kyrie era, and you can put yourself in a position where now you have some direction. Now you have an identity where, hey, we're rebuilding. We're stockpiling picks. You got a ton of picks all in all for Durant between what you got from the Suns and you flip Bridges for more picks. You end up with 8, 9 picks here, all unprotected. So you're in good position if you're the Nets to at least have some plan where people always say the worst thing you can be in the NBA is be in the middle. The worst thing you can be in the NBA is bad without your picks, because then what do you have? You have nothing. So, and Bridges wasn't the type of guy you're going to build a title contender around, even as a second best player, forget a first best player. So good move for the Knicks, great move for the Nets. That's the basketball. Knicks down to right around 8-1 to win the title. I would not bet that. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a legitimate title team. Hey, we saw this year breaks, injuries. If Boston gets hurt, somebody rolls an ankle, could you be in a finals? Who knows? Maybe. But I think that's what it would take. But hey, when you've been as incompetent as the Knicks have been, the fact that you can be on the short list of one of the better teams in the league and be one of the better teams for the next 3 or 4 years, I think that's a good deal. Baseball here just quickly. Yankees are playing the Blue Jays right now. They have played terribly. Luckily, Baltimore's played badly just at the same time. And their pitching's a mess. They have holes in the lineup. Judge is incredible, but outside of Judge and Soto, Verdugo slumping, it's not a really good team right now. I think it's a long season. I think they'll get reinforcements, but I think they need reinforcements. The bullpen, the starting pitching, holes in the lineup. So the Yankees, who had been basically the best team in baseball up until a couple weeks ago, have really started to show some cracks. So they're going to need to stop the bleeding here. The pitching's been bad. I mean, you name it. Cole was awful. As long as he's healthy, I wouldn't worry about him. I think he's just ramping back up, but that's certainly concerning. So not a good couple of weeks for the Yankees. But again, the Orioles haven't played well either. So they were both red hot. Now they're both cold. That will be a good race. But the Mets are a story where they were, I think, 24-35, 11 games under 500, and you blink and they're back to 500. Just an incredible job. And it's not a bad team. When you look at And I like their under before the season just because Senga was hurt. It's like, I don't have enough pitching. But even I said, as someone who thinks they're an under team, I mean, you look at the lineup, just read the names. Nimmo and Alonso. Nimmo's a very underrated player. Alonso, Lindor's played better. Alvarez is a monster offensive player. It's not that bad of a team. It really isn't. Vientos is giving you a contribution. It's a pretty good offensive team. If you could have ever gotten the Diaz you expected, you'd be in very firm position to make the playoffs. And I don't think they're a bad bet to make the playoffs. I don't, they're going to be an interesting position when it comes to the deadline, because I don't know how you can sell now. Long term, that's probably the best thing. Hey, we get something for Severino, who's pitched really well. I'll get something for Manaya and JD Martinez and all these guys, and really stack our chips here and be really set up with prospects for the next 2 or 3 years to start to come into our own. But hey, Alonso's older, Lindor's older. You got a chance to get in the playoffs. You saw what Arizona did last year. I think you have to see this thing through and just figure, hey, we get in the tournament, we get a couple of breaks, and who knows? Now, do you go out and add a player? I guess it will depend on the next month, but the Mets with a remarkable turnaround. And yeah, I think it's legitimate. I really think it's legitimate. This is not a bad team. I wouldn't be shocked if they make the playoffs. The NL's not that good. You give the Braves a spot. The Braves have played better here. But outside of that, you got 2 wild cards up for grabs, and I don't know, the Padres, the Cardinals, all these teams, none of them are that good. I don't see why the Mets can't get to 85, 86 wins and make a playoff. So that's the baseball. Yankees are Mets. Mets are playing well. Keep an eye on some of these other races. Judge right now, leader for MVP. Judge and Ohtani are really separating themselves in the MVP race, because it seems like Ohtani hits a homer every day, and it seems like Judge hits a homer every day. In a league where people say, hey, the balls are dead and nobody's hitting, Judge hits one every day, and Ohtani pretty much hits one every day. So that's the baseball. That's the basketball. When we come back, college football with Brad Powers. That is next. This is Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. Let's talk a little college football. And if you're talking college football and betting, there is nobody better than our next guest. You can catch him, hit the books, bet the board. It is the great Brad Powers. Brad, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me as always. Look forward to talking some college football.
Yeah, we're a couple months away from week 1. So just where are you with your prep process? What does it take for you to get ready for a season? Just kind of teach us how to fish and how you get ready for a college football season.
Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, even though we're 2 months out, I'm pretty much wrapping up my prep. The prep started almost immediately during the national championship game because, the stuff was up as far as not only, you typically for most years had national championship futures for the upcoming season, but this year in particular, game of the years, we're getting posted during the game. Season win totals were out in February. So I've been thoroughly active betting college football and prepping it ever since Michigan, the final whistle there. So, yeah, it's a never ending process, especially with the transfer portal. And we're talking about rosters back in the day, maybe changing 20-25% season over season. Now we're talking, some rosters, 60%, some rosters. And on average, I would say 40% of your rosters getting overhauled. So a lot more work required of me than just even 5 years ago.
Let's talk overrated and underrated teams. Why don't you give me one of each? Let's start with a team that you think right now is overrated by the market.
Texas, I'll keep it at the top. We could talk like small school stuff, but Texas at the top would be a team that, win totals 10.5, getting a lot of respect, playing a tougher schedule, moving over to the SEC. Look, I got him in my top 5, my power rating, but you plug that power rating into the schedule that they're facing, I don't come up with 10.5 wins. I come up with 10. So I think Texas is a little overrated, and I'm still not buying Sark yet. I thought, and obviously they win the big game at Alabama, but in 2 of their other most important games this season, when expectations were that they were supposed to win the game against Oklahoma and Washington, they fell short. So not quite buying Texas yet. A team underrated on the opposite side of that. Oh man, I would say, in the ACC, I like Virginia Tech quite a bit. It's a team that was really playing at a top 25, top 20 caliber at the end of last season. And if they carry that over into this season, they're capable of maybe getting close to double-digit wins this year.
Yeah, I've heard Virginia Tech and I've heard NC State. I think it was you who also likes NC State too. So I've heard both of those as underrated teams. And you mentioned
I like NC State quite a bit too. So yeah, both of those are, I think one or the other would not be stunned if either one of those teams makes the ACC championship game.
It's funny you mentioned Texas. I think it gets forgotten for a couple of reasons. First of all, because Washington hung on to win the game, and second, because it was on New Year's night, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, Monday into Tuesday. But the fact that Texas was throwing the ball into the end zone to steal that game and actually had a guy open, was going to be one of the more stunning comebacks, collapses, just bad breaks. The Washington gets hurt. That gets forgotten. It's just how close Texas came to actually stealing that game and going to the national title game.
Yeah, I mean, it was close. I don't know what they're doing at the end. Ewers threw a couple passes, like a screen pass on what was that, second down, kept the clock rolling. That was not good management. So
No,
we'll see. I mean, Texas last year was the exception, not the rule. And we're talking about a program
sure.
last 10, 12 years does not meet expectations. So we'll see. I mean, I do like the recruiting and whatnot, but I mean, you're not playing Texas Tech anymore. You're playing Georgia and Ole Miss.
Any Heisman bets you'd recommend at current numbers? I feel like this with, and I think you've gotten close on a couple guys that finished second. And I don't like Burrow was 200 to 1 in cash, and the NFL MVP, like Lamar and Mahomes, were 80 to 1 in cash. The books, I feel, I don't know if it's this way with Heisman, have just kind of taken their ball and gone home, where anybody that has a pulse is just completely slashed. There's a huge hold on these numbers. So they've kind of taken the fun out of these numbers. That being said, is there anybody you'd recommend or you'd look at for a Heisman bet with current numbers?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have similar thoughts as you do. I mean, just again, 4 or 5 years ago, great market. Didn't win. There was a couple that that were close to winning 100 to 1 for me, like Bryce Love, a Stanford running
Right.
back 6, 7 years ago. I was able to get a good price even on last year winning that. But as far as finding guys like 50, 40 to 1, 50 to 1, 80 to 1, like I'll give you a great example that, just showing what the market's done in just a couple years time. Hendon Hooker, I bet a couple years ago, he's a Tennessee quarterback, 80 to 1 preseason, because I thought, oh, Josh Heupel's offense is very quarterback friendly. He's the favorite prior to getting hurt in the South Carolina game, the second to last game of the regular season. So let's flip forward at 2 years to see what the Heisman market's going to do with the Tennessee quarterback. Nico Iamaleava has only started one game. Market's at 20 to 1. 25 to 1. You would hope it's closer to that 80 to 1, what Hendon Hooker was preseason a couple years ago. We just don't get the same discounts or guys that everybody's known, at least at this point. Or if they're not known, they don't care. They're just gonna, the theoretical hold on some of these markets is astronomical. If I had to bet one now, it'd be Jackson Dart. If you can find anything from 15 to 1 or greater, I bet it at 20 to 1. I think you still readily find 15 to 1 or more. Ole Miss quarterback. I like Ole Miss quite a bit this year, and I think he's gonna put up some monster numbers.
Is that a market where you feel like the books can get a little sloppy during the season and hang a worse number than maybe before the season when they have time to sift through everything? Do you get the sense that you can get a better number and maybe catch the books with their pants down once the season starts and they got a lot going on?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the market. The market I'm more intrigued about as far as how they're going to price it throughout the course of the season is the playoff market, because we got a new 12-team playoff. And right now, a lot of books have the yes or no up as far as the playoff. Will this team make the playoffs? And, right now, I don't think there's a ton of value, but I think, catching a team like, look, I love Georgia. Georgia's number one of my preseason power ratings, but they have to play at Alabama, at Texas, at Ole Miss. Chances are they're probably going to drop one of those games. What does Georgia's playoff and national title futures what does it look like after a loss for them? That's where I'm looking to take advantage of a team, an Ohio State team that, I think is really good, but they're at Oregon. And right now I think they should be a small dog in that game. If they happen to lose that game at Oregon, can I get a nice friendly price on Ohio State to make the playoff, to win the national title after a loss? Because I looked at, there isn't a sense of urgency now to run the table. I mean, a team like a Georgia and Ohio State or even a Texas can still get into the playoff with 2 losses. So I think the chances of these teams going 12-0 in the regular season is lessened. So I'm looking to take advantage of it and, the rare losses for some of these upper echelon teams.
Anything for odds to make the playoffs? And I don't have these here in Connecticut for whatever reason. You can't bet futures, one of these dumb rules, but anything to make the playoffs or to win the national championship. I know it's viewed as a very top heavy year, but do you have any thoughts on any markets that in terms of that have value?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple that I bet. Oregon, it was at the time -215 to make the playoff. I mean, I got their win total right in the same mix as an Ohio State and a Georgia. And Ohio State and Georgia, if you haven't looked to make the playoff, is getting dealt right around -600. So I thought Oregon should at the very least be in that -350, -400 range. So if you're getting anything -300 or less, Oregon to make the playoff. Yes, there. If you're looking, I know everybody wants to bet a little to win a lot. A couple teams in the group of 5 to keep an eye on. Because obviously the group of 5 is getting a playoff bid this year. Who's it going to be? Well, I think Boise State's the clear-cut favorite, at least at this point. Liberty's right in the mix because they just had the highest preseason win total, and they're going to be favored in at least 11 of their 12 games. If you're looking for somebody sneaky, Texas State, a team out of the Sun Belt. This is totally out of left field, but they got 2 key home games in September, UTSA and Arizona State. Both of them at home, both very winnable. If they win those couple games, they become the favorite in the Sun Belt. And if they run the table, they're getting the playoff bid with a couple of nice non-conference wins.
Wow, Texas State. How about actually winning the championship? It's just a handful of teams. There's nobody else that's worth taking a flyer on. Is that a fair way to look at it?
I mean, I'm just going to keep it real. I only think there's maybe 2 or 3 teams that are capable of winning it with the expanded playoff. And now you have to win 2, 3 games, 3 games now for the teams that have a bye. The only 2 rosters right now as they stand that I think is capable of winning it as we do this in late June, Georgia and Ohio State. So, and they've been priced out of the market. Again, I have not gotten too involved there as far as the market. I mean, if you're looking again to bet a little to win a lot, I'm not saying this because I'm a Notre Dame fan. I'm usually very pessimistic on Notre Dame, but if they win the A&M game in the opener, and it's a pick'em game, Notre Dame's going to be a clear-cut favorite in their remaining 11 games. If you can get a nice, juicy 30-1, 40-1 on Notre Dame, I think that's a decent bet. Not a great bet, but a decent one.
How do you like this expanded playoff? We're seeing in all these sports, baseball's adding a million teams, NBA's playing teams. I'm sure NCAA tournament's going to go to 78, 80 something teams. I don't mind it I like it as a bettor. I just don't know as a fan. I think it kills some of the excitement. Where are you at with it?
Yeah, very similar thoughts. As a fan, I don't like it because, I mean, I'll just give you an example. Ohio State, Michigan's been, basically everything on the line. Now you can lose that game. You might see a rematch now without divisions in the Big Ten title game. You might see that game the very next week. I mean, that kind of makes the big time games in the regular season mean a lot less more. There's just, like I mentioned, a less sense of urgency in the regular season. So as a fan, I don't like that. But as a bettor, with it being a new market, and I'm not sure that the books fully know how to price everything, I'm kind of excited. I'm hoping to find some value in it.
Anything you're looking at week 0, week 1, any games that at current prices that you like?
Well, I've made 43 week 1 bets already.
That's it?
So, you're asking me, it's always tough for me, a guy like me, but current market, I mean, I'll keep it local here in Las Vegas. I like UNLV plus the 3. And if you can shop hard and find a 3.5, I think they win the game outright against the Houston team that totally rebuilding their roster in a first game under a first-year coach and Willie Fritz. I like UNLV in that one.
Miami, Florida is a marquee game. It's going to be, I would think Florida would have some enthusiasm for them in the market. You get an SEC team at home getting points. You get to fade Cristobal. Would you be looking to back Florida in that spot?
I bet Florida in that game. Number no longer available, but
What'd you get?
4.5.
Ooh.
See, I have no life. I just sit in front of a screen. They overreacted. Somebody must have bet Miami and moved it like a 1.5. It was 3. I'm like, that's wrong, to say the least. I mean, anything at 3 or more, I like. But honestly, I think Florida wins the game. So Florida money line for me at the current number. I know it's 2.5 right now. I like Florida to win that game.
All right. You get involved in any of these other awards? I know they're starting to add like Doak Campbell, some of these Blitnikoff. Do you get involved in these markets or no?
Yeah, I see a couple of books. Unfortunately, here in Vegas, it requires me to make phone calls. In other states, we're not that aggressive here. I have not. Nobody, I don't do much fantasy or work on individual player stuff on the NFL level or really even the college level. So I rely on other people, and they told me that not much value. Theoretical hold on those markets is pretty astronomical.
Yeah, I've seen these books starting to put more and more college player props up, and I'm more of a I do all the sports, so I'm not an expert in the players. But man, if you just honed in on just doing player props for college, I'm sure those are beatable, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. I've been told that I would be good at it.
Yeah.
I just, when those markets get posted, usually Friday, Saturday-ish, what I'm focused on, I bet FCS. So I'm used to it the last 3-4 years. Call me old school, but I just like dealing with sides and totals. And once I get in that zone, that's what I'm working on usually late in the week.
Yeah, it's hard to do everything. All right, man. Anything else? Anything I missed? Any closing thoughts on the college football season?
No, I think you've hit it. Excited about the 12-team playoff. We'll see how the books handle it, but I think if you're looking for a shock team to win it all, I'm afraid I got some bad news. I'd actually be shocked if it isn't Ohio State or Georgia. I just think those two teams are clear cut above everybody else this year. Maybe I throw Oregon and they're at 3.
Is Bama without Saban? They just don't have enough talent. Is how big is that drop off going to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll give you a hot take because that's what people want. I actually think Alabama will be better coached this year than what they've been the last couple of years. I have not been
Wow.
impressed with Alabama's coaching staff the last couple of years, including Saban. Now, talent, they don't have much coming back. There's some holes a little bit on that roster, but I have went from this. Talk about look, I love that markets are opening up in January and February because I'd like to think that at that point I have a significant edge in how to price teams. When all that saving stuff went down, I was selling Alabama. I mean, the portal's open for them. It's closed for everybody else. I thought their roster was going to be decimated. They held on to more players than I expected. So originally took an under 9.5 Alabama. Don't like that anymore. In fact, the last couple of bets that I made on the Crimson Tide have been pro Alabama. I bet them against Wisconsin in a week 2 game of the year line. And then also I like you're getting Alabama 9-1, 10-1 to win not the national title, the SEC. Yes, please. I mean, we haven't seen that have that type of pricing since about 2007 or 2008. I think Caleb DeBoer is really good. I mean, 25-3 at Washington, and the Alabama fans that cry that wanted Dan Lanning and Sarkisian as the coach instead. I'm here to tell you, DeBoer went 5-0 against those guys the last 2 years and was the underdog in all 5 games. He won all 5 of them outright. I think he's an elite coach.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's a hell of a stat. I hadn't heard that stat, and yeah, getting 9-1 on Bama. That's back in like what the Brody Croyle days, back in like
there you go.
you and
I love
were
it.
in
That's a good
college.
reference.
Yeah, exactly, Brad. I appreciate the time, man. Hopefully, we'll do this again either before or during college football season. I know you're busy, so I'll let you go. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, it's easy. You can find me on Twitter or X or whatever you kids are calling it these days. Brad Power 7 is the Twitter handle, and then you can go over to the website, bradpowersports.com.
All right, appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, that will do it. Thank you to Brad Powers. Rate, review, subscribe. Going to be doing something at some point. I know I keep saying this, but we're going to be doing some sort of giveaway. So if you leave a review, leave a comment, are going to be doing some contest at some point, and you will be eligible. So go to Apple, leave a review. Go to Spotify, leave a rating, and we will be back Monday. Enjoy the weekend. See you then.